Hello and welcome back to Raw 12:51 AM's coverage of the Warwick SU Spring Elections. I'm here with Emma Birch, obviously current sports officer and running for re-election to be a sports officer for the next academic year. We're going to be asking her a few questions about why she wants to be re-elected to the role. So Emma, just to start off, what are your key manifesto pledges for next year?
Yeah, so one of my main sort of pledges is changing varsity up a little bit. This year was a massive struggle trying to get Coventry to even agree to it in the first place. Many clubs and sports missed out, which is a real shame. So I started conversations already with Birmingham about this, and I think we could have a varsity with Birmingham. It's going to be a bigger, more competitive varsity for Warwick. At the moment, we win every year. It's not even that exciting because we just know what's going to happen. Other things is I'd really love to do a big Champions and Champions sports event, which I've already started talking about with operations, and it seems really exciting. Where essentially representatives from each sports club compete against each other at different sports. So that's something I'm really excited about. As well, I've started a lot of projects that will have a long-term impact that I can have if I'm re-elected. I can have an impact on them for a second year, including my trans inclusion project, my mental health project. Just showing for the trans inclusion that this is more about a wider, bigger impact beyond Warwick. Lobbying NGBs to change their trans inclusion policies for books, so that and as well as having an impact on Warwick students, it's going to have an impact on students across the nation as well. And then with my mental health project, it's more about collecting the information needed to show the university, to lobby the university that sport is so important to our mental health. And that is why they have to push down the prices. So it all links in with prices, which I know always comes up. But yeah, those are sort of my main things, I'd say.
Yeah, and obviously to do with those prices, how do you plan on making sport at Warwick more accessible to students, especially with regards to the prices of joining clubs and the ongoing cost of living crisis as well?
Yeah, so this year I worked with the Widening Participation Officer, and we made a Widening Participation Sports Officer bursary. So this was a bursary that targeted Widening Participation students. It was promoted to Widening Participation students, and we were looking for those factors and also a passion for sport as well. So that's one thing that I really want to carry on and expand on. I want that to be open for more students, so that more students are able to access that who wouldn't be able to ordinarily afford sport. Another thing is I think with sport, it's this massive one-off payment, but like at the very start of the year when you come in, you're already struggling with money. You've got this massive payment in front of you, and it seems scary. So one of the things I'm having chats about at the moment is having terminal memberships. So then at least people can start throughout the year. At the moment, if you want to join a sports club, it's a lot of money just for like a term and a little bit. So if we had terminal memberships, people could feel more comfortable to start at different times of the year. And then also it's a more long-term plan is the SU taking more control of the club pass, but that is going to be that is more long-term plan, and will involve a lot of lobbying with the university as well. Also, like
Uh,
the price is so expensive because the university doesn't put enough funding into Warwick Sport. So it comes from, yeah, it's a big project, but it's to lobby the university to prove to them, show them that sport is important at Warwick, so that they give more funding to Warwick Sport and that the price becomes cheaper.
Yeah, and one thing that came to light over the last year was the prevalence of sexism in sport at Warwick with the Sexism in Sport survey. If re-elected to be sports officer, what would your strategy be for creating better gender equality within sports at Warwick?
Yes, this was essentially the reason why I ran for it in the first place last year. In that I experienced a lot of sexism in sport, and I wanted to be able to do something about it. But I've been lucky; I've had this platform to actually be able to make some changes. One thing that, as well, I think you've got two. Well, there's two separate things here in that you've got sexism itself in sport, and you've also got um, women's sports still not getting the recognition and treatment as men's sport. So something that I did this year was I wrote a report on this about gender parity, and I delivered it to the book CEO. So that is really to have an impact in books, for books teams, to make sure that women have the same facilities as men, they get the same treatment and recognition as men. And I've really tried to push that with clubs as well this year, trying to push female sport on campus. And then in terms of sexism, obviously, so I chair the Sexism in Sport Task Force, and we are using the data from the survey to we bring in clubs, talk about their club cultures, see how we can tackle sexism in their culture, in their club culture, and also it's recognizing that even with that survey, it doesn't tell us everything. We still need to know sexism between clubs rather than just in the clubs itself. And surveys, and they can't always be 100% trustworthy, and that people might not, one club might just report no sexism. That doesn't mean there's no sexism there. So I think it's more about the moment, having like proper conversations with the clubs themselves about their cultures and seeing how we can improve them.
Yeah, and as well as that, with the cultural aspect, the last year has seen some complaints about the way sports clubs or some sports clubs run their socials, including obviously circling. How would you ensure that execs create a safe environment for other students and do not abuse their power during socials?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So in part of the survey, there was a bit about circle chants and circle behaviour. So what we're doing in the task force at the moment is we are identifying, which clubs do we need to target with this, which clubs reported sort of the most inappropriate chants, and then we're going to get them in, talk to them, sort of, I want to hear from them sort of why they do these chants, what they think they mean, because it might just be a simple bit of misunderstanding or naivety there. So I think it's just, directly talking to the clubs themselves as part of this task force, and then challenging some of these chants, some of these circle behaviour. But no, like I've heard and I've seen and I've heard lots of obviously like misogyny in circles, and that is just not acceptable. And obviously clubs need to know that.
Yeah. And over the last year, there have also been a number of complaints regarding kit delivery from Akuma. How would you ensure that students across all clubs receive value for money when ordering kit?
Yeah, so this is a weird question for me because obviously we are not a tender this year, and I voted against Akuma. Um, Unfortunately, I was outnumbered, and we renewed the contract with Akuma. But the thing is we haven't just renewed the same contract. What we're doing now is we have a new contract, and that is the most important thing. And that we want in that contract, we will hold Akuma to account on delivery times. You know, if it is late by a certain amount, there needs to be some reimbursement for clubs. Um, and then also we want to hold them account on communication as well, and that they don't communicate very well with clubs. They need to be giving an order confirmation within at least 48 hours. So these are all things that have been put into the Akuma contract, so that essentially they have the contract there, they have to stick to it. So that is how I'm planning, if I'm re-elected, to hold them to account. I'll refer them to the contract, which at the moment doesn't exist, but it is in the process of obviously being written. Well, it's been written up, but it just needs to be agreed on and signed.
Yeah. And as well as that, how would you ensure that sports clubs are more inclusive and accessible to students that did not play much or maybe even any sport before university?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think this especially comes into, this is something that I find a lot with women versus men as well, because what happens is a lot of women come into university sport at disadvantage. So many women, they drop out of sport at like a teenager age, at the age of being a teenager, and then they come into university sport with a disadvantage. And that is something that especially like Warwick Sport need to consider, especially when they look at like their performance program. They need to consider that women come in within a disadvantage because they might have stopped playing sport. In terms of more broadly, people that come into work without playing, not playing sport before. I think it's about showing that it is an appealing, showing that it's important to mental health. Really trying to change up the Warwick Active program, which currently offers free sport for students, although it's never as appealing as joining a sports club is. So I think there's a lot of things a lot of ways you can go about this, but I've worked really hard on like promoting clubs as much as possible this year, like reviving the Instagram account, so really showing that club sport is appealing to people, which to try and attract more people who haven't played sport before. Say, oh, you can try this new sport out. It's here for you. There's a club here. And then also by going back to the Warwick Active program, it's about making the rock up sessions more appealing, as I think they exist and on paper it looks good, but they don't have the same community feel as sports clubs.
Yeah, and one final question: what makes you stand out from other sports officer candidates?
I think for me, obviously it's a little bit different because I'm the current Vice President of Sports, but I've built these connections and I've got the experience to be able to carry on this work. It's not as if someone can come in now and continue the things that I've done, because I've worked really hard to build the connections for myself, and that I'm in a really good position to make actual change now. So that is why I really would love to continue to actually have a really big impact in a lot of areas, especially inclusion regarding gender equality and trans inclusion.
Yeah, so that's all of our questions. Thank you to Emma for taking part in the interview. And obviously, we do have a number of other interviews with any of the other candidates running for the other roles. So make sure to watch them. Make sure to vote in the spring elections. And then join us on Friday as we reveal who your next SU team will be.